It was a calm day in the Galactic Alliance's command center. The stars twinkled quietly in the vastness of space, and everything seemed normal. But then, a strange signal came through. It wasn't a distress call, but something was odd about it. The message was brief, only a few words, but the location of the signal was what caught everyone's attention. It was coming from a small, unimportant sector of the galaxy. No one had ever heard of it before. The Alliance's top officers immediately took notice. The Galactic Alliance had powerful technology that could detect signals from across vast distances, but this one was different. It wasn't a regular transmission. It had a pattern they had never seen before. It didn't match anything in their records, and that was troubling. The signal wasn't even using the standard frequency of known species. It was something new, something foreign. Captain Alara, the leader of the fleet's reconnaissance division, quickly ordered a team to investigate the origin of the signal. This could be a trap, she thought to herself, watching the data flash on her screen. The Alliance had dealt with many alien species over the years, and this kind of mystery usually meant danger. But what if it wasn't? What if this signal was a warning, or even a plea for help? As the team moved closer to the signal's source, the tension grew. The space around them seemed quiet, almost unnervingly still. They passed through asteroid fields and empty systems with nothing in sight. The closer they got, the more they questioned whether this was a mistake. Was it really a threat, or was it just a glitch in the system? Then, suddenly, something appeared on their radar, a massive object. The team's scanners couldn't identify it. It was not a typical ship or station. The design was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The human officers in the Alliance couldn't even begin to guess what it was. Was it ancient? Was it new? The shape was sleek, almost elegant, and yet there was something about it that made everyone uneasy. The officer in charge of communications attempted to send a message, but the ship did not respond. There was only silence. As the human fleet drew closer, their scanners were hit with strange interference. The objects in space around them flickered, and their navigation systems began to malfunction. Something was preventing them from getting any closer. Captain Alara's heart raced. "What are we dealing with here?" she muttered, staring at the large, imposing shape on the screen. It wasn't long before a fleet of ships arrived to back her up. The Galactic Alliance was no stranger to encounters with unknown alien vessels, but this was different. The ships surrounding the mysterious object kept their distance, watching in silence. A deep sense of unease swept over the officers in the fleet. The signal had led them to this point, but they still didn't know what it meant. The galaxy had many mysteries, but this one felt far more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. The Alliance commanders were left wondering who or what was on that ship, and why had they come to their galaxy. The mysterious signal had led the Galactic Alliance to a place they never expected to find themselves, staring at a warship unlike anything they had seen before. Captain Alara's team hovered at a distance, their ships surrounded by an uneasy silence. The strange object loomed in front of them, its smooth, dark surface gleaming under the light of distant stars. It was not just a ship. It felt like a fortress in space. It was enormous, far larger than any vessel the Alliance had ever encountered. Its design was sleek and unlike the bulky ships of other species in the galaxy. It had sharp angles, flowing curves, and strange markings that none of the scanners could read. The human officers who had never seen anything like it were at a loss for words. The ship was advanced, but in a way they couldn't understand. The crew waited in silence, unsure of what to do next. Captain Alara knew that this was no ordinary encounter. "Prepare for communication," she ordered, her voice calm but filled with tension. She knew the importance of this moment. They had to make contact to understand who or what was on that ship. But the seconds ticked by, and there was no response. The Alliance fleet had arrived to support her, bringing multiple ships, all heavy with advanced weapons and technology. They moved into position around the strange vessel, forming a defensive ring. They didn't know what they were dealing with, But they weren't going to take any chances. As much as the ship appeared peaceful, there was a feeling in the air that it was anything but. Despite all the firepower in the fleet, there was one thing that kept Captain Alara and her crew on edge. The warship had not moved. It wasn't reacting. It wasn't even responding to the Alliance's attempts to communicate. Was this an alien ship, or was it something more dangerous, something that didn't need to communicate? The crew's anxiety grew as the ship remained silent, floating in space like a silent observer. The Alliance officers couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though they had no idea who or what was on the ship. The tension in the command center was thick. Every officer kept their eyes on their screens, scanning the ship for any signs of life or weapons. But there was nothing. No movement, no signals, no response. Hours passed, and Captain Alara still couldn't make sense of it. "We can't sit here forever," she muttered to herself. Her patience was wearing thin, but she knew better than to act rashly. If this was an enemy ship, one wrong move could cost them everything. Suddenly, a new signal came through. This time, it wasn't from the warship. It came from one of the Alliance's closest allies, a race known for their advanced technology and knowledge. The message was urgent. "Get out of the area. You are not ready for what is coming. Leave now, before it's too late." Captain Alara froze. The message wasn't just a warning. It was a demand. The entire fleet paused. There was something in the air, something they couldn't see but could feel deep in their bones. What was this ship? Why had it come here? And what was this other race trying to warn them about? The Galactic Alliance's fleet hovered in a tight formation around the massive warship, their ships glowing faintly in the dark vastness of space. Tensions were running high, and Captain Alara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The warning from their ally echoed in her mind. "Jet out of the area. You are not ready." But how could they leave without knowing who or what they were dealing with? "Prepare for another attempt at communication," Captain Alara ordered. The Alliance fleet's communication officer activated the main channel, sending another signal to the warship. This time, the message was more direct. "Unknown vessel, this is the Galactic Alliance. We demand you respond. We mean no harm but will defend ourselves if necessary." There was a long silence. No reply. The warship remained still, like a dark stone in the void of space. The officers aboard the Alliance ships grew more uneasy by the second, and Captain Alara's patience was wearing thin. "Activate the communication probes," she commanded. The probes shot out from the Alliance ships, extending toward the warship with a strange, almost nervous energy. They were designed to deliver a pulse, hoping to trigger some form of reaction or response. But as the probes neared, something extraordinary happened. Before the probes could make contact, the warship emitted a sudden pulse of energy. The Alliance ship's scanners went haywire, and for a split second, the entire fleet was thrown off course. Captain Alara's heart raced as she struggled to regain control of her vessel. The crew on the other ships scrambled, trying to maintain their positions, but that brief moment of chaos was enough to shake the confidence of the entire fleet. "What was that?" one of the officers on Alara's ship asked, his voice trembling. "We don't know," Alara replied, gripping the controls. The pulse had been so powerful, so sudden, that even their most advanced technology had been caught off guard. The warship remained still, as if nothing had happened. But now, the crew of the Alliance was even more confused and uncertain. Was this a show of strength, a warning, or something else entirely? Captain Alara gathered her thoughts and made a decision. "All ships, move to a wider formation. Let's show them we're not intimidated." The fleet responded, pulling back and widening their circle around the warship. They may have been shaken, but they weren't going to back down. The Alliance was one of the strongest forces in the galaxy, and they would not let one mysterious ship cause them to retreat. Minutes passed, and still, the warship didn't move. It seemed to be waiting. The silence that filled space was deafening, each crew member on edge. Every officer aboard knew that one wrong move could turn this into a battle, one that might end in disaster for the Alliance. Finally, Captain Alara broke the silence. "We're not leaving. Not yet. We need answers." As if on cue, the warship finally moved. Slowly and with deliberate precision, it began to shift position. The Alliance ships tightened their formation, ready for anything. Whatever the warship's next move would be, it would change everything. The warship's movement was slow, but it was clear it wasn't leaving. Captain Alara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched it shift in space. The Alliance fleet remained steady, a circle of ships that now seemed small compared to the towering force before them. The silent tension was suffocating, and even the veteran officers could sense the danger. The warship's sleek, black surface gleamed ominously, its edges sharp and precise. Every ship in the Alliance fleet was on high alert, and each officer could feel the weight of the moment. Everyone knew this encounter could change the course of history. The mystery of the ship was only growing. And now, they were face to face with its power. Captain Alara watched the warship as it shifted again, its movements almost mechanical. Then, without warning, it emitted another pulse, a powerful burst of energy that rippled through space. This time, it was different. The pulse wasn't just a simple jolt. It was a wave, a force so strong that every Alliance ship felt it. The pulse hit with a force that was impossible to ignore. The power surged through the fleet, disabling their shields in an instant. Systems flickered and failed. Lights dimmed. The ships shuddered as though they were mere toys in the hands of a much greater force. The crew members struggled to maintain control, their fingers racing over the controls as alarms blared in their ears. "What is happening?" One of the officers shouted, his voice thick with panic. "It's the warship," Captain Alara replied, her voice calm but filled with disbelief. "It's using energy waves, somehow short-circuiting our systems." Her hands gripped the controls as she tried to regain control of her ship, but it was useless. Their technology, the most advanced in the galaxy, was no match for the power of this mysterious warship. In a matter of seconds, the entire fleet was disabled. The ships were still floating, but they were sitting ducks in space, powerless and vulnerable. The warship had not fired a single weapon, yet it had taken down the Alliance's greatest strength with nothing but energy pulses. A chilling silence fell over the fleet. The crew members sat frozen in their seats, staring at their screens, unable to understand what had just happened. They had never faced anything like this. Not in any war, not in any battle. The galaxy's greatest military force had just been neutralized without a single shot fired. Captain Alara stared at the dark shape of the warship, which now seemed even more imposing than before. It had proven its power, showing the Alliance that they were no longer in control. The question that haunted her was no longer what the warship was, but why it had come here. What did it want? Suddenly, the warship moved again, but this time, it wasn't to attack. The sleek vessel slowly turned, its movements graceful and deliberate. It was almost as if it were surveying the fleet, studying them, judging them. Every eye in the Alliance fleet was trained on the warship, waiting for what would come next. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Captain Alara knew this was only the beginning. Whatever was coming next, it would change everything. The once confident leaders of the Galactic Alliance now found themselves in a state of shock. After the devastating show of power from the mysterious warship, their fleet was left crippled in space, its systems down, and no way to communicate or fight back. Captain Alara had ordered her ship to stay in position, but every officer knew the warship could destroy them with ease if it wanted to. The Alliance had faced many challenges, but never like this. Never had they encountered a force so advanced, so overwhelming. What was more terrifying was the simple fact that the warship hadn't fired a single weapon. No missiles, no lasers, just pulses of energy that tore through their defenses. The message was clear: we are in control. The leaders of the Galactic Alliance, from every corner of the galaxy, gathered in a high-security council room. It was a large, dark room, filled with holographic displays and the hum of advanced technology. But despite all the power at their disposal, no one had an answer to the problem at hand. Their ships were useless. The warship was untouched, and no one knew what to do. "I don't understand," said Commander Zorith, an experienced military leader from the Raven species. His sharp, angular features were tense, and his voice shook. "We've never seen anything like this. No species in the galaxy can do this. How could a ship, one ship, disable our entire fleet?" "Exactly," Captain Alara replied, her voice steady, but with a hint of frustration. "We've never seen anything like it. And what's worse is that it's not even trying to engage in battle. It just appears to be waiting." The other leaders in the room exchanged uneasy glances. Admiral Gallia, a veteran of the Alliance, leaned forward, her brow furrowed with worry. "We need to make a decision. We can't just sit here and hope this thing will leave. We have to act. If we wait too long, we risk losing our only chance at taking control of the situation." "But how do we fight back?" asked Captain Jarek, another senior officer. "Our weapons are useless against it. Its technology is light years ahead of ours. We could throw everything we have at it and still not make a dent." "We're not the only ones in this galaxy," said Commander Zorith, his voice rising. "We have allies. We need to contact them. We can't fight this alone." The council was split. Some argued for contacting other species and forming a larger coalition, while others believed they should make a bold move and attack while they still had the chance. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Attacking the ship, with its mysterious power, could end in disaster. The warship had already proven it could defeat their most powerful weapons without breaking a sweat. What would a full-scale attack even look like? "We have to find out what they want," Captain Alara said quietly, as if to herself. "If we can understand that, we might find a way to resolve this peacefully." "But what if they don't want peace?" Admiral Gallia pointed out. "What if they want war?" Silence fell over the room. The question hung in the air like a thick cloud. The leaders knew that if they took the wrong step, the entire galaxy could be in jeopardy. "We'll need to send emissaries," Captain Alara suggested after a moment. "If this warship is going to remain here, we need to talk to them. We need to understand what they want. Peace or war. Either way, we need answers." The council was torn, but Captain Alara's words echoed in everyone's minds. They needed answers. They needed to know who these humans were, what their intentions were, and what they were capable of. The fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The Galactic Alliance had made their decision. After hours of tense discussions, they had agreed to send emissaries to the mysterious warship. Despite the terrifying power the ship had shown, the leaders believed it was their only chance to understand what the humans wanted. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. The ship was not attacking, but it wasn't leaving either. And the longer it stayed, the more uncertainty filled the galaxy. Captain Alara stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out into the void of space. Her thoughts were heavy with doubt. The warship still hovered in the same spot, waiting. It hadn't moved since the energy pulse that disabled their fleet. Alara felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. If they made the wrong move now, the entire galaxy could be at risk. The emissaries were ready. They would board the ship, make contact with the humans, and try to understand their intentions. The hope was to find some kind of peaceful solution. But deep inside, Captain Alara wasn't sure what to expect. She had seen no sign of aggression, but she couldn't ignore the undeniable power the warship had displayed. The human fleet, if it could even be called a fleet, seemed to have no other ships. The warship alone had been enough to incapacitate the entire Alliance force. What kind of species could do that? And why had they chosen to reveal themselves in such a way? With a deep breath, Captain Alara ordered the emissaries to be sent. The Alliance's small shuttle approached the warship cautiously, its engines humming as it closed the distance. The communication systems on the shuttle were active, but no response came from the warship. The silence was deafening. Inside the shuttle, the emissaries prepared for the unknown. They were a mix of species, chosen for their diplomatic skills. They were calm, but even the most seasoned diplomats felt a sense of nervousness. They knew they were about to meet the humans for the first time, and that encounter could shake the future of the galaxy. As the shuttle drew closer to the warship, a new signal came through. It was clear, loud, and direct. The voice that spoke was human, and it filled the shuttle's communication system. "This is Captain Vance of the human warship. I speak for humanity. You are in our territory now. Do not mistake our silence for weakness. We came to establish our presence. You will follow our terms or face the consequences." The message was cold, without any signs of friendliness. It was a stark contrast to the hopeful words that the emissaries had been trained to deliver. Captain Vance's voice was firm and unwavering, carrying an authority that made the air feel heavy. The emissaries exchanged worried glances. They had expected some sort of greeting, perhaps a polite introduction. But this was a warning, clear and sharp. It was evident that the humans were not here to make friends. They were here to make their presence known, to claim their place in the galaxy. The shuttle continued its approach, but now, with each passing moment, the reality of the situation began to settle in. The human warship was not a peaceful visitor. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the emissaries would have to tread carefully. Captain Alara listened to the message from her bridge. The gravity of the situation hit her like a wave. The humans weren't just powerful. They were determined. What did they want from the Alliance? What would happen if they refused to meet their demands? The galaxy was on the edge of something new, and no one could predict what would come next. The emissaries had delivered the message, but they had not returned. The human captain, Vance, had made it clear that humanity's presence in the galaxy was not up for debate. They were not here to negotiate, and they certainly weren't interested in alliances. The silence that followed the transmission was chilling. Captain Alara's mind raced with thoughts of what the next move would be. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and no one knew what would happen next. In the council room, the leaders of the Galactic Alliance sat in stunned silence. The warning from Captain Vance had been loud and clear. The humans had no interest in diplomacy. They had come to claim their place in the galaxy. The power the human warship displayed was overwhelming. No one could deny that humanity was not just another species. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Are we really going to let them dictate terms to us?" asked Admiral Gullia, her voice tinged with anger. Her species had fought countless battles, and they were not used to being pushed around. But the reality was inescapable. The human warship had neutralized their most advanced ships without a single shot fired. It had shown them that they were powerless against it. "We have no choice," Captain Alara replied quietly, her hands clasped in front of her. She was trying to hold on to her composure, but the truth was sinking in. The humans had proven that they were more advanced, more powerful. "If we attack, we risk losing everything. If we refuse to comply, they could destroy us." The room fell silent again, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air. The Alliance had always prided itself on its unity and strength. Now, they were facing something they had never encountered, an enemy that didn't need to fight to win. A species that had technology far beyond their own, and a willingness to use it. The leaders knew that the next step was crucial. If they didn't make the right choice, the entire galaxy could be plunged into chaos. The emissaries had left, but there was still no word from them. Had they been sent to negotiate or to be silenced? No one knew. "Perhaps we should try to understand them," suggested Commander Zorith. His voice was calm, but the suggestion was hard to ignore. He believed that the Alliance could find a way to coexist with humanity, if only they could find some common ground. But what if they don't want coexistence? Admiral Gullia responded sharply. What if they want control? Captain Alara looked down at the map of the galaxy, her mind racing. The warship was still out there, waiting. She couldn't ignore the fear growing in her chest. The galaxy had always been a place of many races, many cultures, but now one species, humanity, had thrown that balance into question. And they had done it without even lifting a finger in a traditional fight. "We need more information," Captain Alara said, her voice firm. "We need to send someone to meet with Captain Vance directly. This cannot be decided by fear alone." She knew it was a dangerous move, but it was the only option left. The humans weren't leaving, and they weren't going to back down. If the Galactic Alliance wanted to survive, they needed to face this challenge head-on, no matter the cost. As the council members exchanged nervous glances, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived, and the old balance of power was forever gone. The situation in the Galactic Alliance had reached a boiling point. The message from Captain Vance of the human warship had made it clear: humanity was here to stay, and they would not negotiate. The silence from the warship after that transmission spoke volumes. It was as if the humans were watching, waiting for the Alliance to make their next move. The power imbalance had shifted, and now the galaxy was on edge. The council room was filled with a tense atmosphere. Captain Alara and her fellow leaders knew the stakes had never been higher. They could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. If the Alliance didn't respond wisely, the entire galaxy could fall into chaos. Some believed they should try to resist, but others were starting to see the reality. Humanity's technology was too powerful. Fighting back was no longer an option. The question now was how they could coexist, if that was even possible. "We need to contact our allies," Commander Zoreth said, his voice calm but heavy with concern. "We cannot face this alone. We need every species to work together. Humanity is a threat to us all, and if we don't stand united, we risk being destroyed. We cannot ignore the power they have." Captain Alara replied. "Their warship showed us that. We have to find a way to work with them, or else we'll be wiped out one by one." There were murmurs around the table as the council debated. Each race, each species, had their own thoughts on how to handle the humans. Some, like Admiral Golia, suggested a forceful response. They argued that the humans had already proven they weren't interested in peace. Others, like Captain Alara, were less certain. She wasn't convinced that violence was the answer. If the humans wanted power, they would take it, no matter the cost. The Alliance's military might had been useless against them. The time for war, it seemed, had passed. "We've never faced anything like this before," Admiral Golia finally admitted, her voice quiet. "We need to consider every option carefully. If humanity is truly here to dominate, then we have no choice but to fight. But if they're here to build their empire, we may need to submit to their demands." Another long silence filled the room. The leaders had never been forced into such a difficult situation. Their galaxy, once full of diverse civilizations working together, now seemed so fragile. The threat of humanity loomed over them all. But there was still something else: the unknown. "What if there's another way?" Captain Alara asked. "What if we could find common ground? Could we negotiate a new kind of peace where we all have a place?" Some of the leaders nodded, but others were skeptical. It was hard to trust a species that had made such a powerful statement. The fear that had taken root in the council room was hard to ignore. "We must send an emissary," Captain Alara said firmly. "I will go myself." Her words echoed in the room. The council was silent, everyone looking at her with mixed expressions: concern, respect, fear. She had made her decision. Someone had to take the risk, and if humanity's intentions were truly as dangerous as they seemed, then it would fall to her to make the first move. If it was the only way to keep the galaxy from falling apart, she was willing to face whatever awaited her. As Captain Alara prepared to board a shuttle that would take her directly to the human warship, she knew the galaxy was about to enter a new era, one where everything could change in an instant. Captain Alara stood in front of the transport shuttle, her heart pounding in her chest. She had made the decision to go meet the humans, to face whatever came next. It wasn't just a matter of diplomacy now, it was about survival. The galaxy's fate rested on her shoulders, and she couldn't afford to fail. Her shuttle, a small craft with minimal protection, was about to approach the human warship. The sleek black ship loomed in the distance, its powerful silhouette against the backdrop of space, reminding her of the immense force it represented. She had already seen its power firsthand, the destructive energy pulses that had disabled the entire Alliance fleet with no effort at all. As the shuttle closed the distance, Captain Alara's mind raced. What would she find when she met the human Captain Vance? Would he be as cold and demanding as his earlier message? Or would there be a chance to talk, to find common ground? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she had to remain focused. Approaching the warship now, the shuttle pilot's voice crackled over the comms, getting a clear signal. No incoming threats. Captain Alara nodded. "Stay alert," she said, her voice calm but firm. They were getting closer to the warship, and she couldn't ignore the sense of danger that seemed to pulse from it. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to be ready for anything. The shuttle drifted closer to the docking bay of the warship. As they neared, a door opened, revealing a small docking platform where they were guided to land. The moment the shuttle touched down, the air seemed to crackle with energy. Alara's hands were steady on the controls, but she could feel the tension in her body. This wasn't just a negotiation anymore. It was a confrontation. The door of the shuttle opened, and Alara stepped out onto the metal floor of the warship. She was met by a few human soldiers, their posture stiff and professional. There was no welcome, no warm greeting. They simply stood at attention, waiting for her to speak. "Captain Alara of the Galactic Alliance," she said, trying to steady her voice as she addressed the humans. "I've come to speak with Captain Vance." One of the soldiers nodded and motioned for her to follow. They walked down a narrow corridor, the lights above flickering slightly as they moved deeper into the heart of the ship. Every step seemed to echo, reminding her of how small and vulnerable she felt in this place. Eventually, they reached a large chamber where Captain Vance stood, looking out through a large window at the stars. His uniform was simple but authoritative, and his expression was unreadable. He turned to face her as she entered, his eyes cold and calculating. "Captain Alara," Vance said, his voice calm, but with an edge of authority that left no room for doubt. "You've made the right choice by coming here. Your species should know what humanity is capable of. I am not here to make deals. I'm here to claim what is ours." Alara took a deep breath, her heart racing. This was it, the moment when the fate of the galaxy would be decided. She had hoped for something more, a chance for peace, but Vance's words made it clear that the humans had no intention of negotiating. "Why?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. "Why come here with such force? What do you want from us?" Vance's expression softened slightly, but his answer was clear. "We want control. We want to be recognized. And if you stand in our way, we will take everything." Captain Alara realized then that this was not just about a few battles or negotiations. The human warship was only the beginning. Humanity had come to dominate, and the galaxy would have to adapt to a new order. The question now was whether the Alliance would submit or fight. The room was silent after Captain Vance's declaration. Captain Alara stood still, trying to process what she had just heard. The human warship was not here to negotiate peace. It had come to take control. The Alliance had always believed in unity and cooperation, but now, faced with the cold determination of Captain Vance and humanity, everything seemed to be shifting. Captain Alara knew the gravity of the moment. This was no longer just a conversation about alliances or treaties. The galaxy's entire balance of power was in question. Humanity had shown them its power, and Captain Vance had made it clear that they would not back down. The question was, what would the Alliance do now? "Is this really the path you want to take?" Captain Alara asked, her voice steady but filled with a hint of disbelief. "Do you really want to destroy the peace we've worked for? This galaxy has been a place of many species working together for years. You can't just throw that away. Captain Vance's expression didn't change. He seemed unmoved by her words. You mistake my intentions, Captain Alara. I am not here to destroy. I am here to build. Humanity will lead, and the galaxy will either follow or it will fall behind. The choice is yours. The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of what they meant. Alara could feel the tension in the room, the pressure building. Humanity had come with a simple message: follow or be left behind. It wasn't a request, it was a command. She took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. She had always believed in diplomacy, in finding a way to bridge differences. But now, as she faced the unyielding will of the human captain, she wondered if that was even possible. Could the Alliance really bow to humanity's demands? Would they allow a new empire to rise, one that would shape the future of the galaxy? You have shown us your power, Captain Vance, Alara said quietly. But power alone does not make a leader. You may dominate, but can you unite? Can you ensure that all species in the galaxy will accept your rule? Vance's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't flinch. Unity is earned, Captain. It is not given. We will earn their respect, and if they refuse to give it, they will be forced to accept it. This galaxy will adapt to humanity, or it will be left behind. Captain Alara felt a chill run down her spine. The confidence in Vance's voice was chilling. He wasn't just talking about a single battle or even a war. He was talking about reshaping the galaxy's entire future, bringing humanity to the forefront, and leaving the other species to follow. It was a vision of the future, one that would be defined by humanity's strength and dominance. She stood there for a moment, her mind racing. The galaxy she had known, where the races of different species worked together, was on the verge of being swallowed up by this new force. But as she looked at Vance, she knew something else. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Alliance will not kneel easily, Captain Vance, Alara said with resolve, her voice growing stronger. But we will need to decide how we respond. And that choice will come sooner than you think. Captain Vance gave a small nod. Time is already running out, Captain. Make your choice. As Captain Alara turned to leave, she realized that the future of the galaxy was no longer in her hands alone. Humanity had taken the first step into a new era, and the rest of the galaxy would have to decide whether they would accept it or resist. Either way, the galaxy was about to change forever.